Fill to capacity. Crazy good stories and timely topics. Podcast for people too stubborn to quit and too creative not to make a difference. Inspiring, irreverent, and informative. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Pat Benincasa, and welcome to Fill to Capacity. Today's episode, Changing Lives and Communities, Repair, Revitalize, and Rebuild. My guest is Kathy Greiner, Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Minnesota, a nonprofit organization that repairs homes, revitalizes communities, and rebuilds lives. They serve low-income, older adult homeowners, individuals with disabilities, and veterans with their families. Also, they serve nonprofit facilities that are in need of repair. And just to give you folks an idea, in 2022, 573 volunteers spent 4,033 hours repairing 291 homes and nonprofits, impacting 1,000 plus members of the community. Okay, welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for that introduction, Pat. I will add, we also serve families with children in
Okay,
the home. So we do have a broad range of clients that are eligible for our services.
okay. So, Kathy, tell us more about Rebuilding Together, but how did it come into being? And what makes this organization so special?
Think in terms of 18th century barn raising. Entire community got together and they would put up a barn for their neighbor. That's basically how Rebuilding Together got started. Our founder, Bobby Trimble, started doing volunteer projects for his neighbors down in Midland, Texas, back in the early 1980s.
Okay,
And he just brought together a group of his friends and they did this, and it started on a regular basis, doing something for their neighbors every year, the end of April, which actually this weekend is our traditional National Rebuilding Day.
oh,
And so that's how it grew out. One of Bobby's recipients called it, it's just like Christmas in April. So if you've ever seen way back when any kind of graphic for Christmas in April, that is also us. Back in probably the late 80s, we changed our name to Rebuilding Together because it encompassed more of what we do as an organization. Right now, we are about 120 independent affiliates strong across the country. We do have a national headquarters in Washington, D.C. that is very helpful for keeping us all going in the same direction, doing best practices, that kind of stuff. So we are a nationwide organization that does this work with a lot of volunteers. And as we've grown up over the years, we've also started hiring contractors to do some of the more skilled stuff.
okay.
So here in Minnesota, we will actually take roofing applications from anyone throughout the state of Minnesota. They can apply. Once we get through the qualification process, we can take care of putting a new roof on their home.
Okay. Before we go any further, I just want to throw out some data here that falls are the leading cause of non-fatal injuries among older adults. Every 13 seconds, a senior is treated in the ER for a fall. Another interesting piece of data shows that people are living longer. In the U.S. in 2021, there were 90,000 people the age of 100 or older. So, Kathy, what is aging in place?
Aging in place it's a method, it's a science. It looks at, with the help of occupational therapists, how does someone move around their home? How do they get stuff out of their cupboard? How do they get up and down from their favorite chair? How do they get to their bedroom, and how do they bathe themselves? How do they do those essential things in their home? And once we've examined how they do those things, what are the modifications we can do to prevent them from falling?
Okay.
So something as simple as putting 2 or 3 grab bars in a bathroom can be life-changing for someone. I remember volunteers coming back and saying that they had just installed grab bars in a bathtub for a woman whose daughter is active military. So her daughter would come over every couple of days and help her get into the shower.
Okay.
That enabled her to live in her own home. She was living in constant fear that her daughter would be called to serve overseas and she would have to move out of her house.
Yeah.
So by us coming in and putting in a couple of grab bars, the volunteers described her as hopping in and out of her bathtub by herself and giggling because she could remain in her own home. That's what we're doing, is extending that independent living, keeping people in a home in a neighborhood that they already
Yep.
have ties to, that they already love. And research has proven that people live longer when they're in their own home and familiar surroundings. So if we can even give them 5 more years of independence, we improve their quality of life in their own home.
So coming into that situation, there are people thinking like, is it time to move out? Do I stay? This seems to be a very personal decision with so many factors like physical, mental health,
Mhm,
finances, social
mhm.
support. Am I safe here? The condition of the house. What would you say to those people who are really trying to weigh this out? Do I stay or do I go? Any advice or any suggestions you might give them?
I would say seek out the professionals in the areas where, have an occupational therapist come into your home. Have them come in and they can spend an hour, hour and a half, and they can watch you do the things that you do on a normal basis. And they can offer really good suggestions on simple modifications. For some people, it might just be as simple as adding a strap to a kitchen cupboard that enables you to be able to open it easier.
So an occupational therapist will do that kind of work. They'll come to your house
Mhm.
and assess. Okay, that's great to know.
Um, and sometimes it's a matter of, if you've got a doctor's appointment coming up, let them know that, you would like someone to assess that. I'm not sure how, if insurance covers that or Medicaid
Okay.
covers that. For our clients, those clients that are 50% of median income or lower, that's part of what we're providing them. We actually
Okay.
have a long-standing partnership with St. Catherine's University. So they have an occupational therapy program. And every year, we're actually part of the curriculum for their gerontology class, where the students, as one of their assignments, have to go out and do a home assessment for one of our clients. So we get all of those reports back, and then we do the modifications that the students are recommending.
Wow, that's a great program.
It is. It's a fantastic partnership. The students absolutely love this assignment
Yeah.
because they get that real world, tangible experience, and they know that the difference that they're making, that their suggestions are making.
Oh, yeah. So that segues beautifully into your Safe at Home program.
Correct.
Will you talk about that?
So Safe at Home was started about, gosh, 12, 15 years ago now. And it was with the realization that not everybody could wait for 2 or 3 months while we did the planning that is necessary to take care of some home repair work.
Okay.
So what we did is we separated our home modifications from overall home repair. And home modifications is what we call Safe at Home. And it looks at specifically 12 to 15 different things that we can do to improve someone's mobility around their home.
Okay.
We also added building wheelchair ramps to
Okay.
that list of things we do. And about 12 years ago, our first ramp team started working. They're a group of retired Honeywell engineers, and I think they're in the neighborhood of more than 70 wheelchair ramps now that they've created over the years. This is their social thing that they do. So they go out once a month for us
Hmm.
and build a wheelchair ramp somewhere in the Twin Cities. So they do everything from drawing up the plans, telling us what the materials are, and then we have everything at the site ready for them. And they spend a couple of days building this ramp, and then we get ready for the next ramp the following month. Since then, we've gotten two more groups. So we have a group of retirees, folks that get together. We've also got our group of retired carpenters from the Opus construction company. So we've got three really, really dedicated groups of folks that are out building wheelchair ramps all over the Twin Cities.
Now, you do something very interesting with your ramp program. These are temporary ramps. So when they're no longer
Yes.
used, what do you do with them?
We come back and we will take them down for the homeowner. So where a lot of people are nervous about putting up a ramp that they need to be able to access, get in and out of their home, mainly because a lot of times when you see a wooden ramp, that means that footings are poured, cement is poured,
Yeah.
that ramp's permanently there. The system that we use was developed by the Metro Center for Independent Living here in the Twin Cities. So it's a system that works well in our climate.
Okay.
It is a modular wooden ramp system. So when it goes up, it's not permanent. And when the family is done using it, we will come back and take it down. So we retain ownership of the ramp
Okay.
and we'll come out and maintain it periodically. And then we'll remove it when the family is done. So they don't have to worry about either trying to sell the home with a ramp on it
Yep.
or figure out what to do with it.
Oh, that's great. So you guys are statewide. So if somebody in International Falls, I picked the highest point in Minnesota, and they say, "Oh my God, our roof is leaking. The homeowners are older adults." How do they get a hold of you? How would they find you?
So what they would do is go to our website, rtmn.org. We have a tab on there that says apply, and then there's a roofing program on there, and they would send us an application for a roof.
Okay.
Right now, roofing is about the only thing that we do on a basis that would be anywhere in the state.
Okay.
We do have an office in southwestern Minnesota. So we have an office in Windham, and that serves 5 counties in the far southwestern corner. That's a more holistic program down there. So we're looking at the home, everything from the roof to the basement, everything in between, what's broken. We
Okay.
do have a safe at home program down there. And there are volunteers within those communities that are putting together that barn raising effort to do volunteer delivered projects. And 3 of the counties already have their date set for this year. And they're hard at work putting those projects together.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, as you're going throughout the state, are the needs of rural homeowners different than city homeowners?
They are different because there are fewer resources for them to tap into. Here in the Twin Cities, there's a lot of options for folks. And there's a lot of options for us that if we don't have the resources to help someone in a particular neighborhood, we can look to another agency and make a referral.
Ah, okay.
So my folks here in the Twin Cities office have gotten really good at taking a look at what the homeowners need. And if someone else is a better fit for giving them service, we'll make that referral.
Okay.
So we do have quite a long waiting list here in the Twin Cities. And so we know that we're not going to be able to help everybody within a particular year, but we'll do the best we can. And we got a long ways towards that last year. But throughout rural Minnesota, there just aren't those programs. And that's actually how we ended up in Southwest Minnesota, is that the economic development directors in a couple of the counties down there were looking around for resources. They ran across one of their volunteers knew of Rebuilding Together. And so they actually looked into starting their own affiliate down there at the same time that we were also investigating going statewide.
Okay.
And so when we were talking to them, we said, if you want to start your own affiliate, here's how you do it. We'll be here as a resource, but you could also, we are willing to put an office down there and start service down there, so you wouldn't have to go through some of the legal hoops and filing with the IRS and all of that stuff. So it was, once they started doing the investigation, it was pretty clear to them that they wanted to be an office of ours. So we've been operating down there. We're coming up to the 2nd anniversary of the program manager down there. So I think last year we ended up doing 28 projects in total throughout the region, which in an area that is, the population is fairly low, that 28 projects is a lot. And so we plan on doing even more this year. And we're starting to consider where might that next office be.
So you touched on this a little bit. You've seen an increase in demand. Okay.
Yes.
What kind of demands are you seeing? And what do you do to try to keep up with the demand?
We're actually seeing a lot more high dollar repair. One of the things that we learned, especially during the pandemic, when we were not able to send volunteers out, is it taught us how to shift and work with contractors, construction professionals in a better way. And that's actually how we got to the 280, 90 some projects last year, was by using a lot of contractors.
Okay.
So in a lot of cases, we're paying the market rate, but we're not putting volunteers on a roof. So we're hiring roofing contractors.
Okay.
And what we're then doing is we're utilizing volunteers to do some of that finish up work. So we wouldn't necessarily pay a contractor to paint after the job, but we can bring in a volunteer group to do that. And the other thing that we've done is ramp up our fundraising.
Well,
That's really huge for us.
I have to ask, my next question is, how do you guys pay for all this?
It is 100%. It's all fundraising, because the families that we work with, being 50% median income, they don't have the room in their budget to maintain their home, especially with the seniors. They may actually own their home outright because they've paid, work hard and paid for it throughout their lives, but they only make 30% median income being on Social Security and retirement. So they don't have that budget to replace the roof. So I can't even tell you how many times we get a call from maybe someone who is a widow, and their homeowners insurance is threatening to drop them because they have to replace the roof.
Yeah.
And so, we're then trying to scramble to figure out, okay, can we get a roof on for this person? So then they can have their homeowners insurance and then keep maintaining their home. So it ends up being a really vicious cycle. And so for us, it's getting more and more sophisticated with the fundraising.
So with the skyrocketing cost of materials, I'm an artist. I use lumber, I use paint, I build with steel, and you darn near need a second mortgage on your house just to buy lumber now. I mean, it's really skyrocketed. And it seems like on your end, you got to do a lot of juggling here, because these costs the basic building costs are astronomical. How do you cope with that?
A lot of times what we're doing is, for our bigger projects, definitely. So it's like our roofing projects, or if someone needs a new windows or siding, we actually have funding that we write as for deferred forgivable loans to the homeowners. So it's funding that allows us to pay $10,000 to $20,000 for project costs.
Okay.
So we can pay contractors to do that siding job or that roofing job. But our main goal is to keep people in their home.
Okay.
And so we want to make sure that a family they're doing this work so they can stay in that home, not so they can, turn around and sell it to someone else. So what we do when we invest that amount of money is we actually do a 5-year deferred forgivable loan.
Okay.
As long as they stay in that home for 5 years, that new roof or that new siding is 100% forgiven. If they have to sell within that 5-year period, that's not a problem. Part of the loan will be forgiven. Part of the loan gets forgiven every month. But if they sell within that 5-year period, we are one of the mortgage holders. And so we'll get paid back for the remainder of the loan out of the proceeds of the sale. So it's not really creating a hardship for anyone, because no one's making a payment. They've gotten a new roof, so they're warm and dry. And they do have a home that if they have to sell it, they can. And then what we do, when the funding comes back to us, we turn that right back around and help the next person in line.
So, Kathy, this is the picture I'm getting. Part lawyers, part real estate agents, part home inspectors, contractors, plumbers, electricians. Am I missing anything?
That's a lot. Well, it's a lot more hats than my staff tend to say that we wear. We tend to say that we wear 3 hats. One is a hard hat, so definitely we're a construction company. We are a residential remodeling construction company. We also wear the hat of a social worker. A lot of times the families that we're working with, for some reason or another, they need just that little extra hand-holding to kind of navigate through the processes that have gotten them where they are. So we are doing that work, and that's what makes us different than, say, a normal residential remodeling company.
Yeah.
We will actually take that time to walk them through our processes. The third hat that my staff say we wear is an event management hat. When we bring volunteers to a project site, we're also keeping an eye on, okay, are the volunteers having a good day? Are they safe? Yeah, are they having a meaningful day? Are they taking something out of this day from volunteering? So we have to keep an eye on that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
In addition to all of the other hats you mentioned that kind of fall under that hard hat.
I'm trying to envision this. Anybody who's done home remodeling, okay, and I've done a lot of carpentry work. I built my own studio. So anybody who's done a shred of remodeling knows how complicated just doing the kitchen or adding to the house, that is hugely complicated. And you
Right.
folks are doing this on multiple levels, multiple locations, all over the state, which is really incredible.
We are. I will say the one thing that is probably keeping us from, the whole doing a whole kitchen remodel or something like that is we tend to not do remodels just to remodel.
Okay.
We're looking at if there's a hole in the kitchen floor, we'll take that on to get that fixed to get new flooring down. But if someone just wants new cabinets, that's probably not going to rise to the level of the need. And we'll take care of things that are safety and health issues for a family. We want to make our first concern is to make sure a family is safe and healthy in that home
Yes.
and that their home, because as some research has actually shown, is that your home is one of those major determinants of your health.
Yes.
So if you've got a lot of carpet that is maybe 30, 40 years old and it doesn't get that cleaned that well, of course, we all know what gets trapped in carpet. That's an asthma trigger for a lot of little kids. And so the best thing to do is remove all of that carpet. That's something that we could then come in and do. We could bring in volunteers, remove that carpet, put in some nice vinyl plank or some
Yep.
laminate flooring that's much easier to clean. And then you can drastically reduce the number of times a child goes to the emergency room for an asthma attack
Wow.
by doing simply that thing. So
Wow.
there's a lot that can be done, but we have to, because of the volume of applications we get, we have to concentrate on those health and safety issues.
So let's shift gears for a moment and talk about people who rely on mobility through a wheelchair. That's how
Okay.
they get around. And let's say something happens to them in a house that they've lived in and they don't want to leave. Is that the kind of person that would call you and say, we need help. We need maybe a ramp. We have stairs in the house. What do we do?
So yes, we can take a look at that, and within the budgets that we have, we would definitely look at putting on a wheelchair ramp. We've actually done some in the past couple of years where the homeowners have essentially become trapped in their home because their
Yeah.
arthritis gets progressively worse and they can't navigate the steps out the back door and they just don't know what to do. So they actually just become homebound. And when we get those calls and the team goes out and builds a ramp and they see the homeowner use that, go out of their house for the first
Wow.
time in 3 years, you can see these retired engineers just start tearing up too. And it's
Yeah.
really emotional for everybody. So I think that ramps are probably the biggest thing that we
Yeah.
do is giving someone that independence to come and go out of their home and safety. I mean, if you can't get out of your house and something happens in it, like
Oh,
a fire or something like that, that's a huge issue. The other thing we can take a look at is, where around the home can grab bars be added or railings. Even if you put
mm,
a railing down a hallway, that can help someone navigate their home really easily. And simple things like picking up the throw rugs. Throw rugs are a major trip hazard.
yeah.
And if someone can come in and just kind of take a look around the house and help alleviate some of those worries for the homeowners. If they're in a wheelchair, some of the things we want to look at is, are there bathroom facilities on the main floor where they don't have to
Mm,
go up and down the stairs?
yep.
What would go into doing that? What would go into turning maybe a spare back bedroom or something like that into a laundry room and a bathroom?
Oh, yeah.
So it's something we've looked at. We don't do a lot of those. And again, it comes down to the money required to do that type
Yeah.
of remodel. It's something I would love to see us be able to do as funding allows. We're starting to see more of that turning trend where people are seeing more need and definitely the bigger investment needed.
Okay. Now you touched on reactions of your volunteers. This involvement, how does it impact them? What have you seen, observed?
I think for a lot of people, they don't realize the conditions that some of their neighbors live in. Here in Minnesota, especially, we are very proud of our home, our environment that
Yeah.
we live in. So a lot of times we can be really good at hiding what's going on inside the home by
Yeah.
maintaining outside. And folks may not know what that senior neighbor is going through in their home and that they may only live in one or two rooms because they're afraid of hurting themselves in another room.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of volunteers, it ends up being an eye opener when they're working on the home of someone. They see how folks live. And here in the Twin Cities, we don't have real concentrated pockets of poverty. We've got the various neighborhoods within town that we know low income tend to live in, but we
Okay.
don't have the really blighted neighborhoods like what people would be used to seeing on the East Coast or something
Okay.
like that. We don't have a lot of just concentrated blight. And so I think for our volunteers, it really does bring home the idea that, yeah, there are conditions here in the Twin Cities that we need to help our neighbors. And it's not, it takes away some of those stereotypes because if you're going into the home of a senior person and you thought everybody, once someone retired that they had it all, they got it all planned and everything, and then you walk into someone's home and you kind of see what's going on, you just have a different appreciation
Yeah.
for how people have to survive. And so I think it ends up being a good experience for our
Mm.
volunteers, and they can be some of our best advocates too. So it's a good experience. I think one of the things too is that volunteers know they're working at a home where someone's actively living. Someone's actively been living in that home
Okay.
for most of our homeowners that we work with, they've been in their homes 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So this is a home they love. This is a home that once the volunteers are done that the end of that day, they know that volunteers that homeowner is going to be sleeping in that home. So they know they've made a huge difference for the
Mm.
family that very day.
Yes. So when people want to volunteer, do they have to have building skills? Do they have to know how to handle a circle saw? What do you have to do?
they they don't have to know how to do that stuff. They just need to be willing to do it and be willing to take direction. So one of the things that we try and do is we have someone as a job supervisor on every site, whether the group is coming from a corporate team or they're a group of, say, folks from a local church. We'll try and have someone on site that is a supervisor knowing what they're doing so that we're not turning them loose to say, okay, here's the plans, here's the wood, build this deck. We'll see you in a day. We're not doing that. We're making sure that we're supervising it and overseeing the project. And we'll teach them a new skill.
I bet you do. So again, they can go to your website to volunteer, and I'll post
Yes.
that in the show notes, your
Okay.
website and the things that we're talking about. So, Kathy, if I could just go in a different direction, you've been in nonprofits for over 30 years.
I
What
have.
what drives you?
I think at the end of the day, because I've had a couple of stints here and there, like a year or two in the for-profit world. I think at the end of the day, it's knowing that I'm making a difference for someone, or it's not necessarily that I'm having to keep an eye on the bottom line and make someone a profit like a shareholder. At the end of the day, yes, managing a nonprofit, we still have to be in the black, but I know that I'm making a difference for someone. I'm making someone's life better. And that's what's driving me is just sheer the service of the work.
So you've been with Rebuilding Together Minnesota, and if anybody knows the inside and outside of this organization, moving forward, what are your goals? What do you envision happening or things that you'd like to see happen?
I would love to continue to grow. I've had a long time dream since I started working here has been to see the Twin Cities affiliate go statewide. And being able to do that a couple of years ago was a huge dream realized for me. So I think for me, it's where else can we expand throughout the state of Minnesota to start helping folks have better homes? I also have a dream of starting a construction training program. So we
Oh,
did a pilot class during the early year of the pandemic, and we learned a lot. And so what we've been kind of looking at, we just hired a consultant to redesign the program for us. And so we're going to be working with partners to design a construction training program that brings in at-risk youth. So we're looking at youth from 17 to 24 years old
Okay.
that are interested in getting into the construction trades. Our vision is that our program would be a pre-apprenticeship program. So it would be the basics. How do you do construction math? How do you do certain things?
Yep.
Exposing them to some of the trades like plumbing and electrical, giving them the opportunity to have some labs. So maybe it's working in our warehouse and building sections of these modular ramps. We'll teach them some of the basic tools for building. And from there, they would be able to go out and get a job at a local remodeling company
Yep.
or go on to an apprenticeship program and get a construction job with one of the bigger firms here in town. So that's our goal is being able to open it up to the community that we normally work in and providing an avenue for a living wage job.
Wow. That is, no, no, seriously, in and of itself, if you did nothing else, that would be on the scale of 0 to huge, huge, because of the
Mhm.
need, you know, especially with college, the cost of college skyrocketing, and there are kids that don't want to go to college. What are they going to do? They don't know.
Exactly. They don't know that you can have a really good life in the trades because our society has pushed so much the idea that
Yeah.
everyone needs a 4-year degree. And you don't. Not everybody is cut out for college. And so, let's figure other options out for them. And one of the things we all learned from the recession back in the, 2008 to whatever it is, that a lot of people actually left the construction trades. So that made all of the building that happened during the pandemic, that made it even worse and helped drive up the prices is because there weren't a lot of workers doing it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so it's still a need. And that's, we may do 3 or 4 classes a year, but still it's getting folks exposed to the trades and getting them out there into positions that would give them a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be open to male and female.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Talk about need, the need that you fulfill going into these homes and making homes livable. But the second piece, allowing young people to be trained, to have a career, to do work that they can feel engaged and feel good about. We need that more than ever.
Right. And along the way, as we're giving them lab opportunities, whether they're, creating parts of a ramp within our warehouse, or maybe they're building sheds. That's one of
Yep.
the tasks that we've thought as we've started working in manufactured housing communities is that there's a huge need for sheds. And so, that's another task that we have the class do is building sheds that we could then deploy to some of these families that have been told that they need to remove or replace their shed, or they could be evicted from the park. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So, gosh, if we could bring these two programs
Yep.
together, get a shed out there and keep a family housed, everybody ends up winning.
So Kathy, when you talk and say you're going to do something, I know enough. I've researched you. To me, it's a done deed. So when you have this up and running, you must call me or email me so we can showcase it in a podcast.
I will do that.
We
I will
need to
do that.
talk about this, okay?
And I will bring my partners at the same time
Oh
because I'm
yeah.
really excited to be working with VUYO community partners to do this workforce training program. And so we're just starting our research.
Okay.
I actually have a meeting on Monday with our New York City affiliate. The person who runs that is from Minneapolis, so she's in town on Monday. We're all getting together, and they have a long-running workforce development program. So we're gonna be meeting with them and kind of learning all their tips and tricks and stuff. So I'm hoping in the next couple of years we're gonna have several
Yeah.
classes go through, and we'll be really doing a lot of good.
Wow, that's awesome. So, of all the things in the years that you've been working at Rebuilding Together Minnesota, is there one project, there's probably 1,000, but is there one project or something that happened that is especially meaningful to you?
You're right. There have been many over the years, but I will say the one right now that is sticking out is that 2 summers ago now, we built a wheelchair ramp in South Minneapolis for a little boy, an 8-year-old boy with cerebral palsy. His story came to us through his teachers. They reached out and said that his grandparents take care of him at night while his mom is working, and they were starting to get just too old to carry him in and out of the house, get him to school, and he really needed a wheelchair ramp. So we got it all put together, got the team out there, and that afternoon I was out there just kind of seeing how things go,
Yeah.
and sat down next to this little boy to watch. And he doesn't have vocal skills. He was giggling. He was so happy that this wheelchair ramp was going to give him independence. So I just sat down next to him and was chatting with him a little bit. And all of a sudden, he reached his hand back behind him and interlaced his fingers with mine and just sat there and held my hand. I I,
Wow.
I still to this day, it'll bring tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
And the really fun part is that one of my staff members was on the other side of the yard and he was taking photos, and he saw this happen. So he got a photo of it. And it is, like most people, I don't like photos of myself. This is one that is framed in my office. I absolutely love this photo because it is so real.
Yes.
It is this little boy expressing his gratitude. And when we've connected with the family now over the last couple of years, it's grandma and grandpa can't speak enough on how much different it has made for him,
Yeah.
because he can now have kids come over after school. He can now play with his classmates. He can go to their home. It's made such a world of difference for him that, you know, if I get, that kind of a story every couple of years, this is kind of stuff that's going to take me to retirement.
Yeah. And it's a
So,
wonderful way to go to retirement.
right, right.
Wow. Well, Kathy, thank you for joining us today
Thank you.
and for the work that Rebuilding Together Minnesota is doing. I'd love to talk to you for another hour. There's so many wonderful things that you're doing. But
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to listening to the podcast when you're all done.
Oh, I'll send it to you. And
All right.
thank you, listeners, for checking in with this exciting and wonderful episode. If you've enjoyed Fill to Capacity, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much.